So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lewis Stringer. I'm the Senior Manager for the East and South East Midlands in the UK Network team at the British Business Bank. And I'd like to welcome you today to Financing Your Innovation with Business Angel Investment. This event will provide both startups, scale-ups, entrepreneurs and support agencies in Leicester and Leicestershire with an update on the finance available from business angels. The event is being hosted by Leicester Startups as part of Leicestershire Innovation Festival. The British Business Bank is a 100% government-owned but independently managed government economic development bank, and we bring expertise and capital to the smaller business finance markets. One of the bank's programs is the Regional Angels program, which helps reduce regional imbalances in access to early stage equity finance. The program seeks to increase the aggregate amount of early stage equity capital that is available to smaller businesses with high growth potential across the UK, but specifically outside of London and the South East. It also aims to raise the profile and professionalism of angel investment activity and to attract further third-party capital alongside business angels while generating a market rate return. And I'll put details of the programme in the chat function later. As at the end of January 2022, 10 commitments had been made to delivery partners under this programme, totalling £115 million, and there's a significant pipeline of potential partners for the programme. At the spending review at the end of last year, the government announced a further £150 million of funding over the next 3 years for the Regional Angels programme, again to support greater activity outside of London and the South East. So today, during this interactive event, we'll be exploring what you need to understand about the finance and wider support available from business angels. I'm pleased to say that I'm joined this afternoon by an expert panel consisting of representatives from Leicester Startups and Loughborough University, Minerva Business Angel Network, a network of business angels with investment groups based across the Midlands, including a collaboration with Loughborough University, as well as a number of businesses that have benefited from the finance and support available. As I said earlier, we're hoping to make this session as interactive as possible. If you would like to ask a question to one or more of our panelists, please drop it into the Q&A chat box and we'll address as many of them as we can do throughout today's seminar. Any questions that we can't get through, we'll get back to you separately after the event. If you weren't already, please be aware that this event will also be recorded and the recording will be shared with all of you afterwards, as well as Leicester Startups YouTube panel. So, before I introduce the panel, I'm delighted to introduce and welcome Sam Lark from Leicester Startups. Sam, over to you, please.
Thanks, Lewis, and welcome everyone to this afternoon's session. And we're delighted to be a co-host with Lewis of the British Business Bank. So my name is Sam Lark, and I'm one of the directors of the Leicester Startups Community Interest Company. And about 8 years ago, I came across a local entrepreneur who just read Brad Fell's Startup Communities book and was inspired to build Leicester's first proper startup community. Began with a few casual meetups, which later became a LEP-funded project led by the University of Leicester. So we've come a long way in the past 8 or so years. So what do we stand for? Well, we preach give first, which means trying to help entrepreneurs with no immediate or expectations of getting anything back in return. We harness the power of peer networks and peer support, pulling founders out of the woodwork. And we're focused on entrepreneur-led bottom-up development of the local startup ecosystem. These are some of the things that we've achieved, particularly over the last 2 or 3 years with the university project. We've opened a co-working space. We try to keep it for innovative, scalable startups. We deliver accelerator programs. In fact, we've got one going on at the moment, and our demo day is this Friday. We run a weekly help desk. We've got a help engine, which is where our mentors live. We've got a series of podcasts, thousands of followers on social media. And in the context of this afternoon's discussion, we'll talk more shortly about how angel investors have helped some of our startups, particularly 1 or 2 that have been through our accelerator program. So we're committed to delivering all of this free of charge, thanks to funding from the LEP, but also from other organisations. And we've had some support from the British Business Bank, so we're particularly grateful to them. I'll pause there. There's lots more information on our website, and I'll put that in the chat shortly.
Great, thanks Sam. And again, please put through information on Leicester Startups. If anybody in the audience isn't aware, your demo day is on Friday. I'm really looking forward to it. Bear in mind the conversations and the session we had yesterday. And again, I'm sure there'll be further accelerator programs in the new year and a great opportunity for businesses to work with you going forward. So I welcome that. So thanks, Sam. To my panel, please. Pete, if you'd like to introduce yourself first.
Sure, thanks, Lewis. Just welcome to everyone. Great to see you. I'm Incubator Manager for Loughborough University. And so I've been with the university for about coming on to 2 years now. So lots of pandemic joy to deal with over the last few years. But I also have another hat on, which is part of the non-exec team that's associated with Leicester Startups as well. So know Sam very well and have been involved since its inception and the projects that span out of University of Leicester.
Great, thanks Pete, and welcome, and thanks for your involvement today. Alex, please, if I can ask you to introduce yourself.
Hi, yeah, so I head up Minerva Business Angels, which is the main angel network in the Midlands. We work across the Midlands. We've invested in over 100 companies since our inception. We're one of the oldest networks in the UK. We tend to start both spin-out scale-ups and startups, and we have over 100 investors. We're the most prolific investors in the Midlands. We also operate out of London, of course, taking Midlands businesses to London. And we're also being designated the second largest investor on the number of deals in terms of the Scale-Up Institute Green Economy Index. So we are very active.
Thanks, Alex. And again, great to have you and Minerva involved, and we'll explain a little bit about the relationship, particularly with Loughborough going forwards as well. Rachel, please, if I could ask you to introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Rachel Bowen, and my background's 28 years in financial services with banks and building societies. My last role was with a challenger bank that we launched, and we grew that to £1 billion. And at the moment, I am a non-executive director on the Loughborough Building Society board, and also the CEO of a tech startup called Initio AI, and we're just in our third round of funding at the moment.
Great, thank you, Rachel, and we'll talk a little bit more about business going forwards as well, and your experiences. So finally, last but not least, Kate, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello, my name is Kate, and I have got a company called Expand Prosthetics, and we make 3D printed prosthetics for kids that can grow with them. My background is in product design engineering, and so I did my degree at Loughborough University and then started my business as my graduate job. We are currently in our first round of funding, and so that's where we are now as a company, and we're currently partway through that round.
Great, thanks, Kate, and again, looking forward to hearing about your journey and your experiences of fundraising as well. So many thanks everyone to our panel. I'm going to start straight away. I've got some questions, but again, please feel free to add some of your questions into the chat. I will be flagging them up, but again, we'll be answering them as we go along as well. So first question, if I may, to you, Alex. I'm going to ask you, let's start as we mean to go on. For the audience, simple terms, what is business angel investment and how does it work? I probably need to know what the acronyms SEIS and EIS stand for as well, if you don't mind.
Okay, so business angel investment, how does it work? It mainly a collection of people some who've had the career, who's still in their career, have exited businesses, and invariably they want to give back. So what we call it's smart money. So it's money that comes along with experience, contacts, and these people typically want to help a business. So particularly in our region, the problem is when you have not made any income yet, you've not got any turnover, and increasingly so now, you have to have a turnover of several million before some of the venture capitalists will look at you. So we tend to try to fill that hole. And that's what our community does. So everybody works together with different opinions and experiences, reviews a company and tries to help and support them grow. It doesn't always necessarily result in money, but it provides experience as well. So that's important. The money can be as important as the experience. So in terms of SEIS and EIS, so it's the Enterprise Investment Scheme. So SEIS is the Startup Enterprise Investment Scheme, and that's for businesses which are really 2 years old. And that's an incentive to get investment. So for an investor, he gets a 50% discount on his income tax. but he also gets an offset allowance against any capital gain. So if he's made a lot of money selling a building, he can put it into SEIS and enjoy basically the tax man not coming after that to some extent. EIS is for companies which are beyond the 2-year period, and it's the period from which they've made their first commercial sale, and that's a 30% that they're given in terms of they can recover from their investment. In both instances, after 3 years, it basically means it's tax-free money if there's a capital gains. So the importance for businesses is that it's an incentive to get people investing. The disadvantage can be, of course, for businesses, particularly with the SEIS, it's a very attractive write-off. And what businesses need to be conscious of is when you're using that valuable £150,000 that you've got, and your approach with a main principle is to get that tax write-off, you want people who are going to come back to you and give you more money later. A frequent risk is people just get that £150,000, a term sheet that locks them in, and not necessarily good terms. So again, that's a bit of a downside of that. But overall, it's a very important incentive. Most companies it's available to, but to get it, you need to have active investment going on and potentially an investor, because that's what HMRC looks for. So, and that's what we're here for. We're really here just to help companies grow. And again, we don't necessarily have the money or can give the money, but we try to give the experience. But the other thing we do is we connect you with other parties as well. So it's very much about that connectivity and network that we're trying to develop. And invariably, it is a crowd and it is crowdfunding, but it's in the traditional sense.
Thanks, Alex. That's a great description. And again, I just reiterate the importance that businesses are aware of those tax reliefs, because most investors in the marketplace will expect to be able to invest in them on that basis as well. And that's the purpose of the scheme. So thank you so much for that. Can I just pick your brains a little bit whilst I've got you on? What's your view, be honest, I know you will be, about the current status of the angel market in the East Midlands, Leicester and Leicestershire particularly? Is it a buoyant market? Is it a difficult one? What problems are a business going to experience trying to attract a business angel?
It is a difficult one. I think we still have the COVID effect, and we're seeing that as we try to move to face-to-face events and getting people to turn up. And we go through this terrible hiatus. Sometimes it feels like you're a hamster on a wheel in terms of pedaling like mad to get people engaged. The problem that we have, and for anybody really south of Watford, is it's not a natural thing for people to do. If you've got money, you buy property because property is cheaper. Say in the Midlands, we're in London, it's too expensive, so something they do. And we do have a major challenge in educating people who basically are classified as what they call high net worth or sophisticated investors, which isn't the level that you think it is, because I'm an investor, is that this is an excellent addition to their portfolio. It's an excellent opportunity to support companies and actually even break away from one of the things we suffer from, where money is given to institutions like private equity firms and it all goes down south. So it's part of the levelling up agenda. So one of the major challenges is to get investors engaged and to get involved in this. They are there, but they're hidden away. And one of the challenges that we have is we need to find them and squirrel them out and get them involved. And that is one of the difficulties. In Scotland, they've been very good at it, but they have a different system in how they support their angel networks, which we don't enjoy in England. And again, you know, it's the one reason why we're the only ones, mainly in the Midlands, because you don't make money at angel investing invariably. Great to break even. And one of the things that we do is we do need to bring more people into the community and get more people to think about this. Hence, we can give businesses money and help them grow and make more unicorns.
Great. Thanks, Alex. And I'm really looking forward to working with you to do exactly that over the next year or so. Pete, when I come to you next, from your experience, both in terms of Loughborough University, but also Leicester Startups, are startups looking for business angels? Do you think business angel investment is a good way for those businesses to start up and scale?
Yeah, I think, Lewis, it's an interesting one because there is a difference between the two groups that I've seen. So when we've seen some of the graduate startups that we're working with or spin-outs from the university, we do see a little bit more familiarity with the fact that investment is an opportunity for them to scale and grow quite significantly. And we see lots of people who come to us just having a kind of general awareness of the fact that actually they might need money to scale, and perhaps that they might need that for an extended period of time. I think the real challenge for us there is knowing when and kind of where it's going to be most effective. I think we see a lot of graduates in spin-out businesses assuming that they're perhaps a little bit further ahead than they might be. And, you know, there's a lot of groundwork that they might need to do before they approach an investment network. Obviously, we perhaps will pick up on some of those things a little bit later in the conversation, but, you know, certainly the more that businesses can do ahead of going out to access investment, the more that they can do it bootstrapped and try and kind of get as far as they possibly can, the less ultimately they're going to give away of their business, and you know, the sort of higher value their business will become. I think that that's true of the kind of graduate and spin out side. I think, if I'm honest, looking at sort of Leicester Startups and work through that network, I think there are people who are that familiar, but there's perhaps a lot more who discount themselves automatically from investment as a route. I don't know whether it's, you know, we haven't quite unpicked it enough just yet, but whether there's a kind of confidence there of people who perhaps not going through that system, and an awareness of, you know, the kind of higher levels of funding that you might need to build the business. But there are so many businesses that I come across from the local region who are absolutely investable, and compare to some of the best spin-outs and other businesses, but actually just haven't considered investment as a route to scale their business more effectively, more quickly. And so it's in those kinds of conversations, we might guide them to at least explore it as an option, and encourage them to connect with the likes of Alex and yourself, Lewis, to just scope out what investment might be able to do for them. So I think there is a bit of a difference between those two categories of people.
Great, thank you. And just to provide some context before I come to Rachel and Kate, Pete, when you're working with those, whether it be startup or scale up, and you're trying to raise their awareness, and I'll use the phrase, you haven't yet, so thank you for that, investment readiness. What are the particular concerns? Do they have concerns about angels and equity investment? And very briefly, what typically are those concerns before I come on to some entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess very briefly, because obviously Kate and Rachel will be able to talk more from their particular perspectives, but consistently what we might see is just a kind of imposter syndrome of, you know, actually investors are sort of too good for me at a certain stage, you know, and it's a little bit scary when you haven't had an interaction. And the fact is that you probably chatted to some people and they're very friendly along the way anyway. So I think there is that underlying actually just confidence to go out and speak to investors. But I think the stage before that is a little bit of education. You know, you mentioned the investment readiness, education around the kind of language that you might expect, the kind of questions that you might expect. That builds an individual and a business's confidence to go out and have those conversations. And also just kind of knowing how you might be rigor tested. So that's the biggest bit that they're afraid of. And actually, you know, it's pretty simple stuff when you dig into it. It just requires some guidance at that early stage.
Great, thanks, Pete. Alex, you've got some questions. I knew that statement, you don't make any money out of business angels, would raise some questions. So you've got two questions. I'll let you answer those, because I fear I know the answer, and there we go, he's answered them already. Look, Rachel, can I move on to you? Welcome, and thank you so much for being a panelist this morning. Can you tell me a little bit about the business, but actually probably as much about your experience of raising investment? I guess that you'll probably lead on that process. So I'm trying to get an understanding of how you found the process, warts and all, please.
Yeah, okay, so just to explain what Initio AI do first. So we were founded to help people in debt and the organisations that deal with those customers. So a simple version, if you're in debt, you need to understand your affordability. You have to fill in a form called an income and expenditure, or an I&E. It's long, it's complex, it's painful, it's quite a clunky process, and it's not really had a lot of digital focus in the UK. So we've built an app solution to that uses sort of the next generation of conversational AI. So not chatbots, but what's coming after chatbots, to help customers fill that form in, which is a better experience for them, and also the organisations that have to deal with those debts, it's much more efficient for them. So that's what we do. It's a really hot field. So when you go for funding, you talk about fintech, you talk about AI, everybody's eyes light up and think, okay, this could be the unicorn that we're looking for. So we get a lot of interest from that perspective. In terms of our experience raising, the first thing I'd say is we probably wasted the first few months talking to VCs. So your point about angels filling that gap is absolutely right. So I think a few years ago, it probably would have been right for us to talk to VCs, and they were more in that pre-revenue space. They don't seem to be now. They're looking for income to be coming in. So angels are absolutely where we need to be. I think, and just to your point, Pete, I don't think Dragon's Den has done you any favours whatsoever in terms of people going to angels. And even myself, you know, I've done loads of pitches now, and even as I go into them, I'm still terrified somebody's going to give me a really hard time and ask me a question that's going to make me fall apart. And there's jargon and everybody uses different terms. So it is quite an intimidating thing, probably because of that TV programme, which is great TV, but not great adverts for angels. I think in terms of the things I've learned, it's been about learning fast and having the resilience to the no's, because you're going to get them. And somebody said to me the other day that every no is one closer to your yes, which is trying to have that positive view of it. But I think it's things like getting the help from people. So Alex did a great job with us early on in terms of sorting our pack out. It's very hard when it's your business and you're very invested in what you do and you know it in detail, to write a clear pack that explains to somebody that doesn't know your business what happened. So get that external view on it, get that help to write a really clear, direct, punchy pack that really explains what you do, why you're different, and why people should invest in you. And then I think it's about being quite targeted. So doing that research, I think at the start we were sort of like, we'll just ask everybody, anybody's money will do, just ask everybody. And that's quite a waste of time in some cases. So be targeted, do your research, use your network. People do buy people. So if you can get the warm intros, that makes a massive difference as well. But that's our experience so far.
That's excellent feedback, Rachel. Thank you so much for that. I guess that's a follow-on question from me, but you've sort of answered it or started to answer it. So, you know, those angels, those high net worths, unless they're part of a network like Alex, and you've got somebody you can speak to and work with, how did you actually find out about those investors? Was it Google, or was it an introduction from Alex? How did you end up then targeting those investors, finding out who they were and actually approaching them?
I think the cold intros are really hard. I think these people are, if you found them somewhere via Google or LinkedIn, everybody else has found them the same way. So they've got really good sort of gatekeepers. So that's a very hard route. I think it has to be through using your network, and LinkedIn is great in terms of somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody that you used to work with 5 years ago, and just really explore all of that, because those warm intros. And I think the wise people in the field, such as Alex and Lewis, that have made really good intros for us, are kind of, they're much more powerful than trying to go cold. It's just too hard. Okay, thanks, Rachel. That's really helpful. I'm going to come back to you if I may. Kate, welcome as well, Kate. Thank you. Sorry to keep you waiting, but it's been a great chat so far. Tell us a little bit about your business. And actually, from recollection, you said you are currently raising investments. So again, it may be a bit sensitive, but please, you're amongst friends. Tell us a little bit about your experiences of raising investment for the business.
Yeah, absolutely. So the company that I run is called Expand Prosthetics, and this originally started off as my dissertation project that turned into a company. And so Expand Prosthetics uses 3D printing to make prosthetics that would not be possible to be made using any other kind of manufacturing. So we're taking a new technology, applying it to prosthetics, and really disrupting the market. As well, because our prosthetics are adjustable, it means that they can grow with kids as well. So that's something that, again, nothing on the market can currently do. So we're coming in with a completely different kind of product, made in a different way. And again, using this new technology, we can make our prosthetics in loads of different fun colours. And so they look a lot more attractive to kids. So that's where we are as a company. We've currently done testing, product development, and we're now at the point where we are raising investment to bring this product to market. And so we've actually been talking with Alex, going through Minerva, looking at angel investment, because previously we've gone through a lot of the grant funding, and we've had funding from Innovate UK and people like that. And we're now looking at bringing in those angel investors. And like Alex said, bringing in the smart money, the people with connections that have been there, that have done it before, to bring in that expertise to help guide the company as we move forwards.
Thanks, Kate. So again, it's very current. Tell me how it's going, but more importantly, have you, a bit like Rachel, have you learned some hard lessons already? And if so, what would be your guidance to anybody listening now?
Yeah, I have definitely learned some lessons. So we started this investment journey back in December. And when I first started, I was like, right, 2-3 months, this will all be done, nice and easy. I have since learned that particularly in your first investment round, that does not happen unless you are very, very lucky. So I have learned that this is just how it works. And especially in your first round, it takes a while for you to establish those connections. You haven't reached out to investors before. You've got to start doing that. You learn what people are looking for, getting things like SEIS approval and knowing what to say and what to introduce into conversations, and exactly where people want your company to be before you start approaching them. So learning the difference between like what an angel investor would want or what a VC would want, and figuring out, right, okay, we're definitely at the angel stage, and going towards VCs would just not be the right fit for now. So I think, yeah, we've come quite a long way over the past few months just from reaching out and speaking to different people.
Great. No, that's really helpful, Kate. I'm going to come back to you and ask you for some more words of wisdom, both yourself and Rachel, if that's okay. So Alex, some really helpful, useful messages from both Rachel and Kate there. From an investor's point of view then, if it's different, what makes a good investment proposition? Typically, what are you looking for that's going to tick your boxes, and how can businesses put themselves in a better position with you?
I think I'm increasingly, because every day is a school day, is learning how to have confidence in the people you're dealing with, and having that chemistry. I think that's becoming almost critical. And I can quote an example where a company went from 4 million to 60 million in valuation in under 18 months, and they're blowing themselves up because they've all fallen out. So it's the team, really. It's so critical. And both Kate and Rachel have been very impressive in that respect. In terms of what we look for, that's that moves all the time. I mean, some people want evidence of traction, so they want evidence of revenue. Revenue is validation. If you've got an early startup spin out, people will look for that intellectual property because they look for that validation, that element of security that comes with it. A team that can express itself and can tell you what they're doing. You know, we're used to seeing the hockey sticks. There is a tendency as well for people to follow the crowd, like well-being at the moment. You get inundated with things, so we look for something different and unique. And actually, both instances, that's what they are. They share my empathy and my frustration, because in terms of Rachel, 2 leading venture capitalists said, "Great, fantastic business. You angels go and invest, de-risk it, and then we'll follow on after." So, you know, and okay, it's a great message for the business, but it's not great. They're not signing the checks. So that is becoming more problematic. So all I can recommend in terms of those looking for investments, I mean, it's very important that you have the ability to be able to express yourself to we used to say a 16-year-old that was deaf. We don't need to say that anymore, but a 16-year-old, so people can get the concept. They are looking for success. They are looking for exits. And the question on exits is that, you know, when we invest, we realize the gestation period may be 10 to 15 years or 14 years, and you're going to tell us it's 3 to 5. So that's the other challenges. And when we come to the issue of angel investors profiteering, the only ones where you get those opportunities is when the scale ups and they're already defined with a turnover of 2 million. So they're lower risk investments. So yeah, so it's about you, the team, how you present yourself, how you deliver your messages, and ultimately, lastly, ironically, the product you have.
And it's always interesting, isn't it, Alex? It is literally in that order. Whereas, dare I say it, a lot of entrepreneurs, particularly early stage entrepreneurs, will see it almost as the reverse order in some respects.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the worst thing that we've had is arrogance. And they come and they're arrogant and they go, well, they're not going to listen. So why are we going to bother investing? So you want that engaging person. The team becomes so critical. I mean, again, great idea, fantastic opportunity that I mentioned earlier, and they blow themselves up because they're all fighting like a group of feral cats. So again, it's the team that is becoming so essential, and we're learning that, and the chemistry between the team and the chemistry between the investors and teams. And when it works well, it works really, really well. And we've got lots of examples, increasing number of examples, where we've got Alcuris, 7 times initial investment, invested in 2017 for those early investors. We've got another one, African Mobiles, which is another local company, and that's just raised 40 million. And we were the original initial investors, still waiting for an exit. The ones where it didn't work with the founder, Syndicate Rooms, early investor in Syndicate Rooms. They used to raise 16 million in a day. They're now trying to raise 150,000. So, yeah, and that's where maybe you can argue maybe the founder stayed too long. So again, it's a team, the exits, and working together to deliver the same.
Thanks, Alex. And just very briefly, before I come to Pete to talk about the wider support, you talked about that a little bit, the partnership, the relationship with your investor and your angel investor. What support would a Minerva Business Angel investor typically provide a business?
That's almost a question for Kate and Rachel. Invariably, what they want you to succeed, and the type of support that they will give you, they'll give you contacts, they'll give you their time, they'll give you their advice. We hope they'll give you their money. The good one, for example, that we've had from Loughborough as well, is where we've taken it from cricket to racehorses. One of our investors has 5 racehorses. And ironically, we're going to take that same technology, which is a Loughborough spin-out, to Saudi Arabia for horses. So it's that network that they provide. It's also those different experiences. Accountants, lawyers, IP are all within the group. Technical experts. One of our angels is sat on several boards of East Midlands company. One of our angels is the chair of a East Midlands company called Tended, and has seen that grow from nothing to raise over 4 million now. So it's also validation of the proposition. By having an investor with credibility, it provides an element of validation. And of course, money attracts money.
Thanks, Alex. You've got some more questions in the chat. We're keeping you busy. Pete, if I come to you next, as you said earlier, you wear a number of hats, including incubator manager at Loughborough University. Can you tell me a little bit about why universities such as Loughborough work with Minerva? What do you get out of it?
Yeah, so I mean, I have to say, Lewis, that there's a much bigger team at the university who work perhaps more directly with Alex. So I did check in with them about this question as well, because, from my point of view in the incubator, what we have is a really strong network of investors very close by on our doorstep, in our home, where we can actually signpost people who are looking for fundraising. And Alex has mentioned a couple of the kind of spin outs and businesses that are local that have used that network effectively. But I have to say that, the relationship's about sort of 8 years old, I think, so far. It includes, I think we were the first place after Warwick, actually, that the network set up. And it's been so much more than just that referral system. So actually, Alex and have to pay him the dues, really, because I think it has been Alex that has driven this a lot with one of my colleagues, Amanda Berry, within the business school. But Minerva has engaged in all sorts of activities across the board, especially with the business school, but also outside of it, which incorporates things like guest lectures, student panels, opportunities to provide some one-to-one guidance, even where there isn't an investment involved necessarily, sort of opportunities to sort of give students chances to watch pitches that are going on to the Minerva network, so that they can actually understand how that process works. And that's for studying students who perhaps are looking at business and economics and just familiarising themselves with what investment looks like in a practical sense. So it's certainly not limited to me just firing off, go and have a chat with Alex if you're fundraising. That the network integration has been really strong with Loughborough and the Minerva network, and looking forward to extending that even further in the future. I think that what it has done is also enables the university to kind of bolster its accreditation. So School of Businesses have small business charter accreditation. All the kinds of activities that we get involved with entrepreneurial across the university help us to improve our credibility as a university with these kinds of connections as well. And I think, personally, it's just great to have a trusted network that you can go to and speak to. So, for example, universities are excellent hubs for innovation opportunities, especially commercial opportunities that might be spinning out from staff and graduates. And actually that does genuinely attract a lot of investors. I get contacted from as far away as India and Singapore and Qatar and the US to kind of ask us to open our books a little bit and say, who are you working with, what sort of businesses? And actually, we're not short of some of those connections, but what we are short of is the ability to kind of develop a relationship so that we know that we can trust that we're sending people to the right places. And so having that connectivity with, the likes of Alex and that wider network, which has been vetted through this process, and, we can have a sort of level of trust in people that we might send over to that network. It's just excellent to have, really.
Great, that's really a great endorsement. Thank you for being. It's great to see Loughborough and other universities across the Midlands working actively with Alex. Alex, we've got a question from Connor. If you can just put in the Minerva website address again, that'd be really, really helpful. Before we finish, and I'm conscious I'm doing my usual poor timekeeping here, if I come to Rachel and Kate to finish with, Rachel, you've told us a little bit about the equity side, the angel investment raising. Why did you decide that equity investment was right for the business? Why was equity investment rather than other finance options the right route for you?
Yes, we looked at various things. We've used tax credits, they're really useful. So certainly look into that as an early source of funding, particularly if you're investing in R&D. We missed out on the grant. So, as Kate said, that's been really useful for her. We should have done that earlier. That's a learning for us in terms of use whatever grants you can get. I think in terms of, because of the amount of funding that we needed, and also because we wanted that external advice and support as well. So Alex talks about, if you tap into the right angel, they'll bring way more than just a check. They'll bring their experience, their contacts, that kind of thing. Because that was quite important for us in terms of our route to market. That's why it was probably more appropriate for us to get that kind of broader help. There are other sources, but a lot of the ones we've looked at, again, want the recurring revenue. So once you've got the recurring revenue, you've got all sorts of options, but we're not there yet. Therefore, we can't unlock a lot of those. So yeah, angel seems to be the right place for us right now in terms of where we're at being pre-revenue.
And the positives of having an angel investor with their introductions, their networks, their knowledge experience, did that genuinely counteract the fear of losing control of the business and somebody coming in? Or was that fear never there?
For me, it was never there in terms of, I think I learned quite early on in my career when I tried to do everything myself. I was a bit of a control freak and I thought it was all down to me to do everything. And there's only so many hours in the day. And then one day I realized that actually there's lots more talented people than me around that I can, if I get them working effectively. So I've probably focused more on leadership. That's something I'm really keen on. So I would take the same approach to angels in that they have something to offer. They have the context, they have the experience, they have the knowledge. Not all of it will always be right. And you have to still know yourself and your own business and filter through that. But absolutely thinking that the world is broader than what's in your own kind of sphere of knowledge is really important. And I think, you know, if you're coming at it with that arrogance of I know everything and I'm the only one that knows everything, I think you're going to struggle. So I think you really do need to accept there's a lot of help and wise heads out there that you need to just rape and pillage if you can, in terms of get as much out of them as you can and make the benefits for yourself.
Okay, that's really helpful, Rachel. And one final question from me, if I may. Clearly, various ups and downs of currently looking to do a fundraise, but what does the future hold for the business, and will it require future fundraisers?
Yeah, so I think like Kate said, the timing is, so if you're doing funding, work out how long you think it's going to take, double it, and then probably double it again, and you're probably still short of how long it's going to take. So just be really aware, start early, and then, so for me, yes, we probably will need to raise again, and we will start much earlier. And I think it's been things like keeping a spreadsheet of who we've spoken to, because as Alex said, we've spoken to a lot of people that said, yeah, great, absolutely love it, definitely in at the next round. Now, I don't know whether they're just being nice to me or whether they really mean that, but I will go back to them in time and find out whether they meant it or not. But keeping that really detailed spreadsheet of who said what, who was interested, why they were, and not taking it personally when they say no, and don't burn any bridges, because you know that you may need them again, they may be useful in the future. And also, the one thing I've learned more recently is if you get a no, say that's thanks, what feedback do you have for me, and who else can you connect me with, what's the onward connection, and don't be afraid to ask for that, because generally people are trying to help you and they will pass you on to other people, which has been useful for us.
Thanks, Rachel. That's really positive messages. Thank you so much. Kate, without being too nice to Alex, because I think both you and Rachel have been far too nice to Alex, and a nice Alex is always difficult to handle at the best of times. But seriously, how important is the further support from investors such as Minerva and Alex, do you think? Because it's not just about the finance, is it?
No, definitely not. And I think if I was just looking for finance, angels might not have been my first choice of funding. But because we were really looking for people and experience and expertise and skills that we could bring in as well with the investment, that's why angels were are such a good fit for us. One of the people that we've been introduced to has extensive experience with taking products through the NHS, and that's an avenue that we've been looking at exploring. And so without going through an angel network, we might not have had that person be able to share that experience with us and want to be like, I had to do this by myself, I want to share that experience and help you do the same. And so I think that's one of the big benefits that we've seen, is interested people who have been there and done that before, or wanting to share that with a new cohort of entrepreneurs.
Excellent. Thanks, Kate. That's really good message as well. I'm going to ask you the same question as I think I asked Rachel, was what does the future hold for the business, hopefully beyond the next current successful fundraise? World domination?
Oh, well, I mean, maybe not world domination, but really international sales are a big goal of ours. So particularly with the product and the way that we've designed it, using 3D printers across the world means that we can be really disruptive as a company. And so we can bring in 3D printers locally, start manufacturing prosthetics in places where they would never be available. And so we're really looking at how we can bring localized manufacture, low cost, affordable prosthetics to the people that need them most, and doing something very agile that larger companies wouldn't be able to do.
Great. Thank you, Kate. So again, from my point of view, hopefully both yourself and Rachel complete the current round, but I'm guessing that the business has such potential, you'll be looking at future funding rounds?
Yeah, definitely. So we've got this funding round that we're doing at the moment. We know that we're wanting to do another one before we do that big international growth stage. And then we'll see where the future leads us. But we know we've definitely got these two to come.
Great. Thank you, Kate. I'm going to ask the obligatory final question from all of our panelists before we finish. One piece of advice, may give you two. For a startup business, anybody in the audience that's potentially looking for business angel investment or investment of any sort, what would your advice be? And I'm going to come to Alex first, if you don't mind, Alex.
The ones that are successful that don't take no as an answer. There is a company called Optus who approached 400 people before it finally got 80k in investment. It exited for 150 million. So don't take no. Keep pushing, keep trying. And no doesn't mean a no. It just means a maybe frequently, as Rachel said. And that's where we see those entrepreneurs who don't take no an answer and keep pushing and trying and pushing are the ones that succeed.
Thanks, Alex. And a final piece of advice from you, Rachel, if you don't mind.
I am going to give you two, actually. So my first one would be, whilst calculating your future valuation and the millions and how you might spend them can be helpful in the dark moments to keep you motivated, don't hold on to it too tightly, because when you start having conversations about how much equity you've got to give away, it can be quite a painful process. And I've watched other people get really stressed about that, thinking they're giving away X%, but actually at that point in time, it's X% of absolutely nothing. So, you know, don't hold on to that too tightly. And my second one would be about, and I've coined the phrase confidently vulnerable. So because I came into this thinking it was like Dragon's Den and I'd got to know every single answer and get it always right, what I've learned is actually you're better off being honest when you don't know the answer, but being confident in that honesty, not you know, kind of, you know, shying from it. Don't bullshit. If you don't know, it's really dangerous. I've watched somebody do that and die an absolute death. It was awful. So just be honest, be confident about not knowing, and then ask for the help, because there are so many people that want to help. And if all else fails, Google the term that somebody's used that you've got no idea what it means, because there's all sorts of great stuff on the internet.
Great, thanks, Rachel. Kate, if I come to you next, one piece or two pieces of advice?
Yeah, I think network is a really important thing to focus on, and having that both when you're looking to speak to investors and also knowing who you want to reach. So having an idea of what you're looking for, not just in the money that you're wanting for the business, but also the people and the skills that you want to bring in as well. So leveraging the network that you already have, and also looking to see what kind of network you want to be building and who those key people can be to start bringing in the things that you don't currently have access to.
Great, thanks, Kate. And Pete, apologies. I always know it's last. Last is sometimes difficult as you tick everybody else's one piece of advice off your list. But do you have any other pieces of advice?
They used all my points up. No, Lewis. So just a very quick one from me. I'd say, do you need it? Do you need it? What do you need it for? Have that really clear in your mind, and also have you done enough to warrant going out and getting that investment, or actually do you need to do a little bit of work beforehand? It's fine to admit that actually, you know, you need to gather that evidence, market test, go do something a little bit more. What we're all looking for is people who are making stuff happen, basically. And so if you can prove that you're making it happen, and actually the next step for you, the next logical step is that funding injection, that's where you need to be.
Thanks, Pete. And that's really helpful as well. So that's it. That wraps things up for this webinar. I just want to send a massive thank you to all of our expert panelists this afternoon. So Pete, Alex, Rachel, Kate, please give yourself a round of applause. You've been excellent. Throughout the session, various relevant links have been added in the Q&A chat box. They'll also be shared with you together with the full recording. We hope you found today's session useful. I've gone back in the TARDIS just to remind you that last week's webinar on startup loans as part of Leicestershire Innovation Festival is also available as a recording. So again, if you're interested in startup loans, please also let us know. And if you haven't had the recording or didn't attend, we'll be able to send that out to you as well. I just personally want to wish you and your business every success in the future, and to keep safe. Please do that. Sam, apologies. I know I've not come back to you. If there's anything you want to add, do you want to do a further plug for Leicester Startups?
Well, just at the risk of saying it too often, please visit our demo day, 12:30 this Friday, online, Zoom, and I've put the details on our website.
Thanks, Sam, and thank you again to Leicester Startups for an excellent 2 sessions, and I look forward to working with you all in the future as well, and good luck to everybody taking part in the demo day on Friday. Also looking forward to that. So please use the links, watch the recording, come back to any of us if you've got any particular issues coming out of today's session. But I just want to wish you all the success and keep well. Thank you very much.